With a yo-ho-ho, it's Tale of the Toaster. Welcome to another tier list video. Yep, it looks like this is becoming a bit of a series. The last one I did on characters was way more popular than I imagined. I just did it as a bit of fun. I thought I might as well record it, but people actually loved the idea. So we're now going to do the same thing with shooting moves. This is again made by my friend TheDamBeaver. It does not include any moves from Go Galaxy because I haven't played the game yet. I have watched the anime, but only once, and I will be covering the game on the channel at some point, so I don't want to give massive spoilers, and some moves I'm just not familiar with, while Ares and Orion I just haven't watched at all, so they're not in. So first 5 games, let's go. Starting with the Galaxy, just start with one of the strongest moves in early days of the series. Bit controversial, I've chucked it straight in C tier only, mainly because I never actually got the chance to use it and grow accustomed to it. In fact, I've barely even seen it at all. Heel kick, I've certainly seen in the games as well. Little else to say about that, or teleport shot. It'll probably be a bit of a trend that the moves from Season 1 stroke the first game get a bit of a battering, because they have to be basic for early days. Same with the meteor attack. Frankly, I don't really remember, but that can be our opener for E tier. Hawk shot was always as well a bit of a punishing reminder that you're playing on a Nintendo DS. The graphics were a bit off, and then especially when you're playing in Inazuma 11 3, where Archer Hawkins has the move. It's like, yep, you're playing on 3DS, but this is still a DS game, so it's off to a bad start, really. We're still getting a load of game-exclusive moves to start off with, because I don't really like Assault Shot either. Moves that don't actually involve making contact with the ball are generally a bit off, while Double Wrath Shot is a bit too much on the ball for it to stay in place, and I think they're just going to kick each other. Double Tornado, though, that's one of the many fire tornadoes that we're going to be ranking in this list, and that can at least have a promising start. Now, that was a little bit of a bland opener, as it were, with some game exclusives, but we finally get the first one that actually made it to the anime, and my guy Jordan Greenway brings us Astro Break. Nearly called it the wrong one there, but Astro Break, the one that he actually used when he was in Alias Academy. It destroys the floor, just looks cool, really sets the tone of what the aliens can do, and I absolutely love it. And then it's even better when Jordan turns into a nice guy and he's still using the same move. Just a shame that Chrono Stones made it so exceptionally weak. But you can't say the same for Astro Gate, which is going to be our first S tier. I don't know how many of those there's going to be, but I suspect it's going to struggle to get onto a second row. Astro Gate is probably the most sketchy one in the S tier, because it's not very different to Astro Break at all. It's just got a few more camera angles, if anything, but it makes it to S tier because it's a game exclusive move only for Jordan. As part of a narrative that I really enjoy, that the anime doesn't even have the luxury of having, and it's just a slightly better version of a move which was already nearly S tier in the first place. So Astro Gate gets the boost from me, mainly because it's from Jordan. Now this is a bit hard to make out, but I'm pretty sure it's Atomic Flare, which has always looked better in the games than it has in the anime, if I'm being honest, but that's another strong A tier. I love Atomic Flare. Now it's weird that we're going through all of the knockoff fire tornadoes first, but Back Tornado is another one that I really enjoy. It could actually be a B tier almost, but yeah, again, it's one of the many tornadoes, but Back Tornado you just didn't expect, especially the fact that it's in the very first game. There's a nice little twist on how things work. This one, I think, is Ballista Barrage, and I am honestly shocked that the E tier is currently far and away in the lead, because I really like a vast majority of Inazuma 11 moves. I'm just not proving it yet. The order, I'm not sure if there's any order to how I'm doing this, but it'll get better. Such as with Werewolf Howl. It's going to be our first B tier. When I first saw the move, I thought it was a bit silly. The flames that come out of the werewolf's mouth look a bit silly when Vulpine's using it, but it's actually kind of so uncharacteristically silly that I grew to like it while using Vulpine on the team, and everything before that is still pretty sweet. Now, if you thought underrating the galaxy was controversial, I'm actually gonna really do the dirty on Big Bang. I have honestly never been keen on that one. I think it's just that little bit too over the top for my taste, and no part of it makes sense. And apart from Jude, I could never remember who was doing the move in the anime. Of course, in the games you just give it to anyone, which always ended up being Jude for me. And yeah, I'm afraid it's just too over the top for me. So now we get the first of the two LBX moves, and this one is Big Bang Slash, so the one that Hero Hughes uses. I'm going to settle for B tier. I nearly went for A because I really do like the LBX games, but yeah, I'm also thinking back to when I watched the Inazuma vs. Danball Senki movie and thinking, I really like LBX as a game, but then watching all the robots' moves, it's just a bit less impressive than the shooting moves in the football matches from the Inazuma guys. But even still, Big Bang Slash is my favourite of the two LBX moves we're going to see, and it's at least a B tier. Now I think we're getting to perhaps the most interesting one yet, and I'm going to put Black Ash at the top of A tier. I said at the top of A tier. Now, the thing about Black Ash, if it was a game exclusive move, or you only saw what it looked like in Chrono Stones, Go 1 and Strikers, it would be an easy S tier. I think it looks fantastic. It's beautiful. The way that the Ash covers the screen at the end of the move is perfect. And then the movie ruins it. All there is in the Go 1 movie is just Tezcat turns kind of purple Super Saiyan and then blasts the ball as a big laser that happens to end in an explosion of ash that doesn't cover up the screen. It's just a big boom. So the game version is an S tier. The movie version is a D tier. And overall, because I'm putting more weight on the good side, that balances out to an A tier. Joining it will be Bouncing Bunny. I think that's a great little move, much better than the... it's a good name as well, better than the Japanese one, and we are not done talking about it. We'll get back to that later. Unlike Bouncing Bunny, Bouncing Bomb, yeah, it seems like we really are going in alphabetical order now. There's nothing too remarkable about Bouncing Bomb. I kind of like the motion, but it's not really applied to anyone important or really that memorable. Now then, I'm going to be really restrictive with the F tier. I promise you that. I suspect it's going to have no more than like 5 moves in the whole list, but one of them, unfortunately, is going to be Brave Shot from Nakata, because I can't hide how disappointing I found it all this time. Nakata had been such a big force throughout all the games, all of the anime. It was finally building up to actually seeing him play football, and when he did his move, it was just that. Like, he gets a bit of a see-through globe and then he kicks it and there's a bit of a blue ray, and that's all there is to it. And it is one of the strongest moves in the game, but it really doesn't look it, and I sadly think that Nakata deserved a lot better than that. Speaking of Nakata, he's actually in the thumbnail for this image. This is one of the death zones. I can't quite tell which at this stage, but I can move it accordingly if needed, and for now I'll just say Death Zone is one of the most iconic shots in the Inazuma 11 series, so it needs to be at least in the middle. But something more iconic is Emperor Penguin number 2. We'll be seeing a lot more penguins to come. That's the first one, despite being number 2. They were clearly thinking this out in advance, and I just like how other random people started using it after Royal Academy. Like the Golden Oldies use it at one point, as well as Coach Lena's Neo Inazuma National. So it just appears in really unexpected places, and that makes me like it even more. Clone Shot is fine. It does exactly what you'd expect it to. Butterfly Dream as well is nearly a C tier. Yeah, let's go with that, because obviously it's an extremely feminine and pretty move, but it belongs to those supporting female characters in Season 2 and 3, so it needs to exist, and it certainly does the job pretty well. It makes sense as a two-person move. What didn't really make any sense is Jumping Jack. I get that it's a shot block, but still, seeing a shooting move on JP has never stopped being weird, and definitely would probably use that slot for something else. But despite that, it actually looks pretty fine. I do quite like it, even if it's questionably useful. Now, we're really going about this one in the wrong order. There's going to be lots of Aphrodite moves to come, and Chaos Break is actually going to be the one that finishes the lowest. In fact, it's going to end up in D tier, because although I think it's cool that it combines God Knows with Fire Blizzard and all three people at once, Torch is kicking the ball from below, and then the ball goes down because that's where everyone else is kicking it. And I also tried to make a thumbnail version of Chaos Breaking, because the three players aren't really on screen together at any point until this image, which doesn't really work. I completely butched my attempt to Photoshop it together, and that made me like it a little bit less. Super Massive Shot, one of the moves of Flora, is going to jump up to B tier. Not because it's especially creative, it is just make big aura around ball and then blast it, but when you get movie animation and that's the only place you're going to see it, or in the game where it, is a genuine mega threat, just seeing it in context gives it enough of a boost for the B tier. Baby Dragon frustrates me, and I could go for F. I won't. Yes, well, if I've said it, I might as well do it. But it's a shooting move that's exclusive to small body players in the first few Inazuma 11 games, and the only ones you actually get by default are Timmy and Todd. Even in Inazuma 11 2, you don't actually get Timmy, you have to recruit him. And whenever I unlock the move, I'm like, oh boy, I've never seen that before, I wonder what it's like, and then I just can't give it to anyone. And then when I did see it, my reaction was a bit of an oh. Very simple, this move, but actually one of the better ones in Season 1, if it is what I think it is. Next we're going to have Crossfire, and I'm going to go for C tier, which is still good. Like, I've actually named the tiers this time for a reason. Even ones in the D tier are still good. We only question the thought of badness when we get to E and below. But it's a very simple idea of fire and ice, but what makes it good is the fact that it is Axel and the newly awakened Sean Frost right at the end of the season. Or if you're playing the game, it's just extremely hard to get. But yeah, it's more the combination of characters than it is the quality of move that carries it to C tier. Dark Matter, I admit it, it looks great. It's going to get a high ranking. Well done to Destra for once. Dark Phoenix doesn't really do it for me. I have a bit of a problem in general with three people trying to hit one football at once, but even then, we're going to go over the Phoenix quite a couple times throughout the list, and by the point of that one, I was slightly burnt out, but it does make sense as a shot for final boss Nathan, so actually I'll push it to D tier. Alright, I was getting a little tired of bad-mouthing moves. I didn't want this to be a particularly negative video, and I didn't think it was gonna be, but the order has not been in my favour until we have a new number 1, and it might actually stay that way. No Future by Maren Giris might be my favourite move of them all. I think we'll decide that as the video goes on, but that is the one to beat. I absolutely adore this move, everything about it. is so scenic, it's so useful. You know, it genuinely makes individual use of both characters so well. It amazes me. Like in Chrono Stones, the game, you can skip the animations whenever you want in a competition route match, apart from the goal celebrations. But I have this move on one of my defenders, Prezari, and I pretty much never ever skip it because I enjoy watching it every single time. Now this one I believe to be Doom Break, Team Ogre's version of Inazuma Break or Death Zone, something like that. And yeah, all of Team Ogre's moves are palette swaps in some way, but then they get the movie treatment and they suddenly look quite a lot better. But that one I was never amazingly sold on, and it's just D tier on my books. Now we get the first of many moves from Victor Blade, and this one in particular is Doom Dive Drive. I didn't mean to put it in front of Astro Gate, the computer's just lagging a bit while I'm recording, but that's going to be my third place for A tier for now. I'm not sure how ordered it's going to be as it goes along, but the way he just drops in from the screen is marvellous. I think it's kind of weird that it's a mega move when he learns it relatively early in the game, and especially in the anime. I think it's a bit early days for a mega move, but it does visually deserve it because it looks fab. This one isn't. It's a Team Ogre move and it's a rain from above kind of thing, and I'm just outright not keen at all. This Team Ogre move is definitely the one that's going to do the best. It is a recolor of Gunshot, the move that Team Zulan use in the anime, but this one obviously, again, it gets the movie treatment, and either way it looked different enough. You know, what if one's meant to be an actual gunshot? That is just a lance of doom and makes for a great long shot to use if you're able to get hold of it. Overall, much better things to say about this one. It's definitely Team Ogre's best move, apart from the goalkeeping ones. But this is a shooting move tier list, so you know. Victor's back again. I might as well have both of his moves somewhat together. I think Atomic Flare is better yet, but Doom Sword Slash is the perfect kind of go version of Fire Tornado, the early game move of your big new team striker, and it's just so full of attitude. I love it. It's a little odd how weak it is in the game, but I guess it has to be for balance reasons. The single kick on the ball, turn away, and then off it goes. Love it. Right, so we look to have found actual Death Zone 2 this time. So this is the one that the Ryman protagonists use under Jude's instruction. The move itself is no more or less interesting than Death Zone 1. It's more just the players involved that makes it cool. But I think they belong back to back, honestly. Victor strikes again. This is one of his lower placements, but it's still absolutely B tier. Supernatural Strike is a weird name that they gave it in the dub. I guess they were trying to stray away from religion, especially for other parts of Europe, but Devil Burst made a lot of sense considering he grows like dark purple wings to initiate the move. That's the best bit. The actual kick itself and the odd sound effect is less praiseworthy, but still really good on the whole. I also like Dimensional Deluge. It's one of the lower B tiers, and the reason for that is it's quite sad when it happens in the movie because it means the match between New Inazuma National and Inazuma Legend Japan is over, and it's over way too soon. This guy has to interrupt it to get his Dimensional Deluge in, and even in the game you'd think it'd be a mega move, or at least V1, V2, V3, and it's just a +1, +2, and that's it. So it's a bit anticlimactic in a lot of ways, but the way it actually looks is pretty spot on. Disaster Strike is going to be another very high finishing move. We've got Zanuck getting involved for the first of 2 times. Awesome. I love the movement, the way the ball is handled, everything about it. Divine Arrows is going to be our next in the F tier, so I guess it is going to be more than 5 after all, but there's so much going on. It's very ungraceful from Zeus Junior High. This guy's just repeatedly kicking the ball and it's going nowhere until eventually it just goes in a straight line with a bit of blue. That's the arrow. Certainly not how I would fire an arrow, especially not a divine one. I've just dropped 2 moves into the A tier back to back. We've got Utter Gutsiness Bat and Utter Gutsiness Club. What's the difference? Well, one got to be in the anime and the other's a little stronger, but they're both the same idea. Pick up another player who's completely rigid and then smash their face into the ball to score a goal with it. It's totally unrealistic. You feel sorry for the guy who's getting smashed in the face, or girl in the case of Tori in the thumbnail. Who the heck decided to take the photo with Tori being the club? That's horrible. But the move is still hilarious, and A tier was the minimum. Double jaw, I would like to put in the C tier. That's from your Little Gigantes equivalent to Kevin. The guy looks nothing like Kevin, but there's just enough dragonness in that move to sell it properly, and the zigzag motion is very cool. Fission and Fusion is a bit of a dodgy name for the shoot command, but it's a extra useful long shot and something that you very much associate with Beta, splitting the ball into 2 and then merging it back into 1. It's all very, very good. Snake shot is fine. It's a bit anticlimactically weak for how it looks, but yeah, it's okay. So Dragon Driver is our first appearance of Bylong, my favourite character in the Go games. And I'm going to be trying to be really harsh on myself, and I'm going to plop it in B tier. I could move it to A purely because it's Bylong, the move that he debuts in Chrono Stones and its respective movie, and well, I'm at least going to put it at the front of B tier. Come on, it's Bylong, man. But it's a little weird how out of his 3 moves in Chrono Stones, his newest one is actually his weakest. The benefit is that instead he can use it at low level, and it's a shot chain, and it looks absolutely fine. Now then, here we go with 3 Kevin moves in a row. We're going to have Wyvern Crash in the C tier, Dragon Tornado in the B tier, and Dragon Slayer in the B tier. So Wyvern has done the weakest just because there's minimal involvement from the dragon itself, and it's very similar to a better version of the move, Dragon Slayer, which I enjoy more because it's just this giant dragon fires a massive laser beam and it's a bit funny, while Dragon Tornado is kind of the logic behind Crossfire but better, because the animosity between Kevin and Axel in the early days of the games and seasons, that was a big deal, and the fact that they worked together to create the strongest shooting move to date at that point in the story is awesome. Love to see it. Double Strike doesn't make a huge amount of sense, and it's quite out of place in the final boss stroke final match, so I'm not going to be too kind to it. Look at Dynamite Shot, another favourite, one of the best in Inazuma 11 1. We'll have it there with Black Ash and Astro Break. It's just funny. What you want to do if you're playing Inazuma 11 1 after all this time, just pick any random recruit, get them to use Dynamite Shot, and have them blow up the goal without even looking. One of my favourites that shouldn't be. It's definitely a guilty pleasure. I'd love to see it come back in a future game someday, though. Eagle Buster, for some reason, was used by the Okinawa guys, and it didn't make a great deal of sense for them at all, but I mean, it's a perfectly fine move. Steeple Shot I've put in D tier because unfortunately it was a little lost in translation. The move actually was born in the anime as a joke, where Sue Heartland, because she's from Osaka and the guys that she was playing against haven't been there before, she actually claimed to have a move that was named after a real world tower in Osaka, and then you know, later on in the season she actually makes it, which is pretty cool. It's not all that high because the ball just kind of gets blasted out by nothing, but then it also has an Eiffel Tower equivalent in the third game that couldn't even be included in the English or any translation, because it had copyrighted lights on the Eiffel Tower, so Eiffel Drive was even more lost in translation. When you're thinking of moves from Season 2, you're probably thinking of Eternal Blizzard very, very quickly. It's a candidate for S tier, don't get me wrong. I'll settle with A to be a little more modest, but it's one of the few moves that I've actually attempted to do in person with a football. It's one of the first moves that comes to mind, and Sean Frost, again, one of my favourite characters. So a good move, a good character, makes for a blast, especially when Njord Snow learns it as well to make it even better. Right then, Evolution, I'm actually settling for D tier, because while I called it Evolution, the relatively cool Japanese name, this is another move that ultimately suffered via its dub name, which is rare. I usually prefer the dub names, and some of them will be getting extremely high rankings purely on that basis alone. But they called it Triple Threat, which has totally lost the meaning of evolution, and the actual move itself, I'm not too keen on. It's a bit too intense for Ricardo, and the move's actually applied to Arion, which again, it's more of a Victor move than anything, but he's already got so many shooting moves. I'm just not sold on it, sadly. Excalibur created some problems down the line because it was a totally unique move name for Inazuma at the time. Then they gave Excalibur the fighting spirit to Bylong and Tezcat. Then they had King Arthur actually give Arion Sherwind a sword with a Miximax and Chrono Stones, and that couldn't be called Excalibur. It had to be Sword of the King. But viewing the move in isolation, it actually had a bit of story relevance, remarkably, and long shots are always good. It's an England team representative I like a lot. Well, I like enough for the C tier. It brings me a lot of sadness to say we've got to slag off another move, but Dark Energy Star, or its Japanese name Extend Zone, completely different meaning, is one that I can't really get my head around, because it looks like one of the strongest moves ever. Like Lucian Dark destroys the floor, enters a black void, and utterly blasts the ball towards the goal. And it's like 120 power, that's it. It's wood type, which it doesn't look like, and it's just way weaker than it looks, and also looks way too powerful for a little newcomer to football like Lucian. It's just too big for his boots, and clearly the power in the move actually reflects that. Now, I've been looking forward to this. We've got another S tier, the third so far. It's building up quite slowly, but Splitting Hairs might be a candidate for my favourite move name. I know there's one to come that I like more, but it's gunning for second place, potentially. We already have Bouncing Bunny here in the A tier, and in truth, that's probably more of a B tier move. I love the visuals and the movement of the ball, but that's all it's got to offer, and it's not especially strong. But I've given Bouncing Bunny a boost because it sets up for Splitting Hairs, one of my favourite moves just of them all, because the name is hilarious. It doesn't sound it when I'm saying it. It sounds like, what are they splitting hairs about? What's to stress over? But then you look at the spelling. Bouncing Bunny, Splitting Hairs. Yep, they're both rabbit jokes. And even beyond the pun in the name, which is one of the best in the series, the move just looks fantastic. They go into silhouettes when they're in front of the moon. It's Arion and Faye's shooting move, and I'm glad they just got one at all. Arion just grabs Faye by the hands and slams him into the ball. It's graceful and funny at the same time. It's an all-round package. Fireball Storm is another one for the A tier. It's visually a mixed bag. I love how punchy it is, especially with the sound effects in the game. It's also kind of Fighting Spirits before we had Fighting Spirits, which is a slight downside, and the way that anime slowly kind of propels Axel into the air from his hands, that looks a bit weak. But also just, if I'm watching the Japanese version, I love hearing him say, "Bakunetsu Storm!" It gets me every time. And then if I'm watching the dub, then unfortunately Axel Blaze's dub voice is one of the worst in the whole series somehow, but it's great in Japanese, and that makes Fireball Storm a treat. First we had Fire Blizzard between Axel and Sean. Now we get wait, I've said it the wrong way. Crossfire from Axel and Sean, and then we get Fire Blizzard from Torch and Gazelle. So those two needed a combo move. That's a staple of Inazuma 11 from the second game onwards when you have the combined version exclusive teams. I'm looking for Crossfire to put them back to back. That's the one. Fire Blizzard is initially less interesting. Like, Crossfire has the better visuals before, but then Fire Blizzard has the better visuals after. The swirling motion that it does towards the goal is actually so good that I'm moving it up to B tier. I just kind of remembered how nice that is. I'm going to put this one in what is it for now, because it looks like normal Fire Tornado at the moment, but it can't be, surely. That's not Axel. Here we go with something that's definitely one of the Fire Tornadoes, though. I'm going to give Fire Tornado Double Drive a high C tier, which is a little bit harsh, I know, but I did find it a bit strange that, you know, every Inazuma 11 game has a final move, the big one that you learn at the end of the game to win the match. And this is the first one where it wasn't a completely unique move and is actually just an enhanced version of an older one. It's, of course, an enhanced version of the most iconic shot in the series, and if that one here is Fire Tornado, which I think it must be, looking at the options below, so for now we're just going to put that in A tier. Fire Tornado Double Drive, yeah, it's just kind of not a unique move, and when you've only got like Lucian's Dark Energy Star to back it up, I'm not too keen, unfortunately, especially because I can totally buy Victor doing it. Arian, not so much. Which means that Fire Tornado Triple Crusher is also going to be in the C tier, but lower within it. Again, this isn't really ordered, but I want to kind of suggest that I'm not all that keen on Fire Tornado Triple Crusher, because it's got all the existing problems of Fire Tornado Double Drive. But then out of everyone else to get involved, they pick Goldie. And then it's kind of described as 3 Fire Tornadoes, but actually Goldie doesn't do a Fire Tornado at all. She just jumps up and chucks the ball in, then lands on it. Don't know how they had the room for her to land on the ball when Arian and Victor are already getting up to all that nonsense. And the name sucks. What the heck is a Triple Crusher? It's not crushing anything. And then it actually belongs to Goldie in the games where she's the least capable of using it. And you know what? It's going the top of D tier instead. However, if Fire Tornado Triple Crusher was not a great name, Flower Plower is a fantastic one. It brings me so much joy to say it every time. Like, Floral Despair was a good, serious Japanese name for it, but Flower Plower is endlessly amusing to me, and obviously it's a Flora move, so it looks good anyway. Oh yeah, man, it's flying fish, like. That's not how they keep it in the thumbnail, oh yeah, but anyway, it's gonna go in the A tier, because, like, it's my signature shooting move whenever I'm using that here, and it's just blimmin' better, like, pet. I'm suddenly a little concerned by how busy the A tier is getting, but I'm not going to exclude Fortissimo Foot. Just an excellent early game move. You're going to have to use it a lot and go on in the early stages, but it never gets tiring because it's just so beautiful. Freeze Shot has been around since the early days and it's exceptionally weak despite how it looks. But those visuals are pretty good. It's a bit basic, but it's got a good atmosphere to it, and I'm pleased that it did manage to get a goal in the anime in the end. Elemental Destroyer is a move that I kind of forgot existed for pretty much until recently. I don't think I'd ever seen it in the game until I just recruited someone that had it. But sure enough, this is used by the adults in the Go On movie, the people imprisoning Bylong and Tezcat. And it's a move that really should have been there since Inazuma 11 1. It combines all 4 elements of, you know, wood, fire, earth, and the other one. And then it combines into one big laser, and I guess the only reason it hadn't been in the games before is they finally got the Void type for Go, the one that's typeless, and it has something to transform into after combining the elements. It's kind of the true Void move. If there could only be one Void shot in the game, it would be that one, and I want to give that plenty of credit. Gaia Break a bit less, but still one of the good powerful alias moves. Gamma's shooting move is probably one of my least favourite of the actual Protocol Omega shots. It's certainly not bad. I pretty much like them all, but that one, you know, it has less to do with him as a character. It's got more to do with his name, but bit weird. I'm really going to do this, aren't I? Ganymede Ray is going to the S tier because it's just hilarious to me. I'm a foreign Malaysia, blah! And that is all I need to say, really. Gaussian Goal, a good move for both Alpha and Mike. That's getting a generous ranking in the A tier. It's sadly a little weak, but visually it's a treat. I love how it looks. Don't really get the meaning. I should probably Google what Gauss or Gaussian is, but A tier for awesome. Reflect Buster is totally illogical, but not, and it's dragged the wrong move by default, but actually that is kind of where I would put Optimal Trajectory anyway, because it's a bit of a rip-off of brainwashing moves right back from Inazuma 11 1, but that one looks a little better, so they're probably going to finish in roughly the same place. Meanwhile, Reflect Buster was supposed to go here. It's still not moving. What's going on, computer? There we go. Yeah, it's certainly powerful. Makes no sense whatsoever, and it's got a reskin, which is probably a little better. Gigaton Head is great as a natural evolution of Megaton Head. It's nice to have another movie-exclusive move, but I was never that fond of Megaton Head in the first place, so they're going to finish in around about the same place. Oh my, it's Spectacle Crash, or Megane Crash if you're naming it after the character. They couldn't really call it Willy Crash in the dub though, could they? That would have caused all kinds of problems. But Spectacle Crash, it barely even counts as a move, but it's a good laugh and genuinely used well to end that match in the season with a 1-0 scoreline, if I recall correctly. While in the game it is an actual move, but still funny nonetheless. So Majestic Radiance, or Glorious Ray, is the other LBX move. It's going to do a lot worse than Big Bang Slash, sadly, because it's just got too many twists in it. Like, Van Yamano does utter gymnastics on his way up to the ball, and like, it can only be used by Van Yamano from Little Battler's experience, and he is not a footballer. It should just be an LBX doing the move and Van happens to kick it, but he shows aerobic gymnastics that he'd never show in the damn Ball Senki games. So just a tad over the top, and then when they actually kick the ball, it barely even registers. It's just a little twink. So I shall look forward to talking about actual God Knows later on, but God Break is going to do the B tier. I think you kind of get what I'm suggesting, that I prefer God Knows, but they couldn't keep using God Knows forever, so eventually it had to level up, and that was a logical way to make it stronger, and I do prefer it to Chaos Break. Canon Evans' move is sadly going to be a little punished. I'll put it at the top of D tier, but God Cannon sounds like so powerful, and it's actually just this kid from the future running really fast and then runs into the ball and off it goes. That's it, I'm afraid. I guess you could say the same for Holy Roller, but the trajectory on that move and the pretty good name is on the whole enough to propel it to the C tier. Grand Fire is ludicrously over the top, and I thought about going for B. I'm actually going to settle for C because I just feel bad for the pitch. Like, how are you going to fix that? And I think the fact that it is a combo shoot is a tad odd because it's so clearly Axel's move. And then Xavier, I guess you can believe it. And Hobbs, he's not really got anything to do with fire. So basically Grand Fire, again, it's 3 people kicking a ball, which is unbelievable anyway. And it's not really combination-y enough for me. And making one of the strongest moves in the series also a long shot was pretty broken. Grand Fenrir, I'm just calling decent. None of the American team's moves are going to do that well, unfortunately. We'll go into that as a package later on. Great Blaster is even tougher to talk about because I already kind of underrated Dragon Driver, but Great Blaster is specifically the combo shoot between Bylong and Victor. That should be awesome. And it is, in a way that makes it generic. They just kind of do a cool pose, the ball goes up, they kick it, and then it turns into a massive laser beam thingy. And we've just had so many moves like that by that point. So I want to love it because it's so strong, it's partially Bylong, it's Void type, but it's just not that original. Something that is original. I Am the Almighty is our 5th S tier shout. Zanuck, my guy, you did it. You have the one move in the Inazuma 11 series that I think has a better name than Splitting Hairs. I Am the Almighty is so up himself that it's just hilarious. And then you get the anime version where he's got to yell Super! I mean, I guess that's in the game. He's just yelling Ultra! Which is less good, but I Am the Almighty is superb. I can't fault it. Brilliant. Grenade Shot is intentionally generic, but I can't reward it for that. You literally just kick the ball and it's a bit bright. That's it. Gungnir is going to be jumping up to the B tier because it's kind of our introduction to long shots as a whole. Certainly the first one I remember seeing to introduce the concept, and what a way to do it. It looks fantastic, and if Astro Break was the perfect introduction to alien moves, then that was the best way to advance it. Gunshot, the poor thing, is actually going to finish lower than the move that kicked it off. Chaos Break gets a little more credit than the original. Gyro Head, frankly, I barely even remember it. All the head but ones blend into one. As does Headbanger. Same thing, it's just got a second person involved punching them forward. Hellfire is an excellent name for a move. Visually, it's not got that much going on, but it was an interesting choice to give it to Argentina, and I'm going to sneak it into the C tier just about. Matchlock Bullet, I've come to appreciate recently. It is the long shot that I gave to Joan of Arc on my Wildfire team, and seeing the animation done with random characters that aren't just the white deer makes it funnier than it already was. The Phoenix is headed for the C tier. Narratively, it's an important one, and it's cool that Nathan is going to be the one to join Axel Blaze, but it has a few too many variations that it kind of made me sick of it in the end, and I think the move is given to Nathan rather than Axel in the game, which makes you just less likely to use it in the game. It's basically a move that you see loads in the anime and never in the game, and that's not the ideal combination for me. Wrath Shot just goes next to Double Wrath Shot because same thing but less people. I guess that puts it slightly in front. Inazuma 1 I have mixed opinions on. It's a great idea to have the goalkeeper involved in a shot for the very first time, especially early in the story. The downside, this move was my thumbnail for every single episode of the first Inazuma 11 Let's Play that didn't have an actual important match in it. I wasn't good at making thumbnails back then, and I needed to get Ace 2 Shoes to remake them all for me. So, on my own bad artistry, it's restricted from the B tier. I don't know if it would have made it there anyway, but you know. Inazuma Drop gets about the same spot because it's another narratively important one that's... you know what? Yeah, it is a B tier. I feel bad for Jack having to be sprungboard off, but I mean, he seems to be up for it, and it's funny how much the ball bends when Axel just lightning kicks it. But where I actually have to punish it for poor old Jack is when we do the Inazuma 1 drop. Jack's a big guy, he can support Axel jumping off him, but not Axel and Mark. And then they do an Inazuma 1 in the air. Mark, you're meant to be in goal, never mind doing all this fancy shenanigans. Jetstream is better than Big Bang. Again, it's one of those where I can't really remember who uses it in the anime. Apparently it's Axel, Hobbs and Mark, would you believe? But it's certainly, the big move of Inazuma 11-3, and it's great to have on pants. I can see this being another controversial one, but Brimstone Rain, also known as Joker Rains, I actively don't like. It's just not fitting for Ricardo, in my opinion. It's kind of cool that we get to have a move that's a combo between Victor and Ricardo, but it's clearly designed with Victor in mind, and Ricardo just has to keep up. Yeah, keep that one in the Go 1 movie, in the Go 1 game, and hopefully don't see that again. Now, don't ask me to repeat what it's called in Japanese, but Chrysanthemum Katana is a high B tier. It's got something that Victor's kind of done before in turning away from the ball as it goes flying off, but a little better than usual. It's just an odd name to try and fit on the screen, Chrysanthemum K. Jurassic Jaws is fine, but not my favourite by any means, just a D tier. Emperor Penguin 1 is also going to join it because it's a little hard to take seriously. You know, it's the forbidden move that hurts you to use and you should never do it. Sanford might break his leg with this, and all that's affecting him is some red penguin chewing on his leg, and it's like, what? That's the forbidden move? But at least it was planned out a game in advance. We had Emperor Penguin number 2, then 1 year later we get number 1, and that's what it is. Who saw that coming? And Emperor Penguin number 3 is going to be potentially the highest Emperor Penguin so far. Visually, it's probably one of the weaker ones, but it's the fact that it combines Jude and Sanford and Caleb Stonewall that makes it special. I just wish it was skippable in Inazuma 11 3, because boy, it's one of the longest move animations on your team, and you can only see it so much. My favourite of the Emperor Penguins is actually Emperor Penguin 7, which is going right to the upper end of A tier. It's so colourful, and it really shows the gap in time as well. You know, 10 years ago we were on Emperor Penguin number 3, now we're on Emperor Penguin 7. We get 7 multicoloured rainbow penguins coming in to long shot the ball across the pitch. Something I always like to have on my team, ideally. Emperor Penguin X is Emperor Penguin number 1, but even harder to take seriously because now it's being used by a knockoff Jude Sharp. Oh dear. Kung Fu Fighting gets a boost to the C tier purely because the sound effects in the game make me laugh, while Timmy's is actually going to take its place while the proper Kung Fu jumps up to B. Final Death Zone, another one of those movie moves that shows how far the moves have advanced over time, and this one's fine. I don't know why they're in space, but they are. Twin Boost, another useful one to have early in the game, and it's fun to see who gets involved, but nothing too special. Leaping Thunder is probably one of the most forgotten moves ever, but it's by no means bad. Love Arrow, you would never think is an actual Protocol Omega shoot command. Like, it's fitting for the player using it, but did Chairman Argos come up with this? Really? Will-o'-the-Wisp Shot, I'm going to put higher up in D, because it's a clever move where, you know, it's meant to be the strongest regular shot that you've come across yet, so the fact that it disappears helps live up to that, but it also reminds me of Harry Houdini, who I don't really like, so this is the furthest it can go. Maximum Fire can go towards the top of D tier with Triple Crusher because it looks good. I like how the flame sword extends from Axel's leg, but it loses points because it's practically inobtainable in Team Ogre attacks. That game only has a few exclusive moves. They should at least be possible to get. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I could never get it. Megalodon is a fantastic name for a move used by a very likeable team. Just the actual kicking animation doesn't have much to it. As promised, Megaton Head joins Gigaton Head in the D tier because I really appreciate the moments in the anime where Mark will suddenly come out of goal and take a shot. You never expect it, and that's the good thing, but it's visually nothing to look at. And the fact that it's a mega move that you can barely even level up in the games because you're stuck keeping Mark in goal where he's supposed to be makes it a little hard on the completionists angle. Now this might be a surprise. I bet many of you have forgotten this move was even a thing, but towards the top of B tier we have Mirage Shot, and this is the Desert Lions' shooting move from Qatar. It's just genuinely entrancing to look at. I like it a lot. Boy, if you thought I'd rarely seen the Galaxy, then Neo Galaxy I pretty much never got to see. I had to look it up on YouTube, and even when I found out what it looks like, it's mainly based on Supernova, so not great in its own right. Northern Impact, though, that for me is a B tier. The signature move of Gazelle, not as good as Atomic Flare, but still great. Falling Planet is another one that you kind of forget is in the game. It was apparently used by Xanax Domain, but I mean, it's good. Omega Assault, straight to the A tier. I considered going higher, and it seems to have dragged Bed of Roses. That's definitely a lot less fitting for the A tier. Actual Omega Assault, yeah, it's a shame that the anime adaptation is used only to just knock the ball into some defenders and then bounce into the keeper, rather than just obliterating him with rainbows. But it's another one of those moves that I never skip in the game, because I love seeing which random 3 players are going to get lined up and do each of Alpha, Beta and Gamma's facial expressions before just making the Rainbow of Death. And you know what? I do like it enough for S tier. Phantasmagoria is actually off to the E tier. Visually it's fine, it's a big dinosaur, that's the kick, but yeah, after going to the bother of getting Faye an entirely new Mixie Max, it is a shame that his new Mixie Max move is the same as before, but just bigger with a comically oversized dinosaur. And then Phantasmagoria is also the Mixie Max story move that gets handed out to the most random recruits. It almost becomes common. The F tier is getting full, but Paladin Strike is off straight to the back. We'll at least put Brimstone Rain in second from best. These two are clearly the best of the F tier. This might be the worst though, because at least Grenade Shot has an excuse for being so basic, because it's just like Sam's early level up move. But Paladin Strike is a genuine goal scoring move from Season 3, the surprise move that Edgar Partinus has after he's already showed us Excalibur. And all that happens is that he just kicks the ball, and it's glowing green. It's genuinely just a kick, one of the most anticlimactic moves I've ever seen, and that might be the actual last place of the whole thing. Snowstorm Leopard is a really difficult one to rank. I'm settling on D tier. I like it because it's based on Eternal Blizzard and even tries to incorporate a bit of Legendary Wolf, but just the leopard, don't like the look, and Njord's kind of in his bad guy phase while he's using it. It sadly just leaves a slightly sour taste. Patriot Shot is a bit out of nowhere. The ball just turns into a flying rocket. It's not bad. Sorry to do this, Eric Stans, but I actually don't like Unicorn Boost. It's good that Eric finally has a shooting move that's not Spinning Shot, but yeah, it's a regular kick that just happens to be followed by a massive unicorn that even does this weird, like, it basically tickles the ball while it's already flying away, and it has no impact whatsoever, but the unicorn's just trying its best to be involved with the kick, and it's not really, and that's minus points, sadly. Phantom Shoot is really early game stroke season stuff. It's nothing special, but it's nothing bad. Shoot Commando 06 Plasma Ball. Yep, I'm already a bit of a Mike stan, so of course the one that gets him to say Shoot Commando 06 is at least B tier. I could go higher, but I'll hold back because it's a tad weak. So I didn't really like Brimstone Rain between Ricardo and Victor, and I don't like Prime Legend that much more. It's enough to be decent rather than E, because it's at least nice and sparkly, but it's, rather than being really fitting for one and not for the other, it's instead just kind of equally unfitting for both. And yeah, and it's also kind of inobtainable again. Psycho Shot is utterly unremarkable. Rainbow Arc I totally forgot about until I was doing some research for this video, and it just totally struck me. I thought it was just going to be a simple rainbowy kick like other moves we've seen later in the series, but then this one gets to grow an entire field of flowers, and that amused me and made me smile. RC Shoot could go anywhere really, because I think it's a fantastic reward for the end of episode 100. It's a filler episode, but it gives you a reason to be there, because Hobbs does actually get a new shot as his reward for everything that he's done. He never uses it in a match because it's probably not all that good, but it's totally unique and just a nice little wild card that also gives you a side quest in the third game. And at some point I rated Reflect Buster. That might actually be Reflect Buster, so that's going in unidentified for now. Revolution V is technically a move used by Steve, so that alone can put it in C, even if the rest is nothing amazing. Rolling Kick is again utterly unremarkable, but purely because it's Steve, it gets to jump a tier. Run Ball Run, I'll put in E because it doesn't really feel like a shot, it's more of a dribble. Meteor Blade, let's get that in the A tier. It's a little controversial because were this tier list taking place at the time of Inazuma 11 2, it would probably go even higher, but as the series went on, there were more similar moves emerging, including a successor to that move, and then sadly Chrono Stones tried to finish it off by making it only 80 power. That's so bad. I shouldn't hold the move back for it because it didn't deserve that to happen, but it's just enough to say the very elusive S tier has slightly eluded it. Ultimate 11 Assault is going to go to the A tier, and I'm glad that Faye is in the thumbnail because I keep forgetting he ever initiated it, because he can't use it in the game. It's given exclusively to Arian, but the way it just brings the official artwork of the game before you've even bought it right back at the very end, it's beautiful, and boy do you need it for those level 99 competition routes. Security Shot I completely forgot before doing this tier list. But Ephemeral Boost will never be forgotten, and Persona 5 the move goes straight to S tier without even the need for explanation. One of the best designed moves of them all. Shadow Ray flip-flops between D and E because visually the move's pretty great. It combines the light and dark very well, and on pure visuals it's at least a C or a B, but it's very anticlimactic in the anime when it's being voiced, because Destra gets to do all the cool parts, Shadow, and then Sanctus just gets to say Ray, and it's, yeah, in that sense it's not balanced. Meanwhile, Saru's voice actor got to have plenty of fun saying Shelby to burst. It's not what you'd expect his shooting move to look like, but I certainly like it. I can only imagine this is Fireball Screw, and it's at home in the C tier because it's an evolved fire tornado, which we certainly have loads of anyway, but at least it's chucked on Axel early into Season 3 / Game 3, and it's not like a mega move or anything, so you don't have to use it all that much. I think Dark Tornado is perhaps the strongest of all the Fire Tornado rip-offs. They kind of got worse as they went along, but Shadow's version is almost as good as the original. Finally, we get to talk about God Knows, and this is high on the A tier. And well, apparently that's where it's going. Hey, Jordan, you get a boost as well. It's so beautiful. I love the whole thing that's happening both before and after the extremely elegant kick. It's the perfect, villain's move, because it's beautiful but strong all in one. And then they just let loads of characters rip it off. Like, there's still nothing more jarring than seeing Dave Quagmire use God Knows, and then it ends up on Desmodus as well. So, but that's fine, because at that point they already had God Break and Chaos Break anyway, so you might as well pass God Knows around a bit. Oh, it's so beautiful, and a good name too. Zephyr Shot, better known on my channel as Running in the 90s, is hard to rank because I love the Running in the 90s meme that I ran with it, but you use it so much in Chrono Stones. It's Arian's only shot for ages, and it's a chain shot, so it's just, yeah, you get tired of it, and it is just ultimately run really fast and kick the ball. I would probably like it a lot less if I didn't turn it into a channel joke. So the disadvantage of Odin's Sword is that it actually appears in the anime after there's already been an international sword, that being Excalibur, but Odin's Sword is not only prettier to look at, but it also makes a surprise comeback in Chrono Stones, which I appreciate, and I just Do prefer it, mainly because of who it's applied to, if anything. Sidewinder, I'm sadly not keen. I just don't like Kaiser much in general, and this too much to this move. Kaiser kicks the ball, it goes absolutely nowhere. And then he kicks it again, but this time it turns into a zigzagging snake. What? How? Slingshot makes absolutely no sense, and I don't have a clue where to put it, but it's ended up there. Now we have to talk about Sonic Shot, Dodge's move, because this one actively left a bad taste in my mouth, because when I played Go 1 I had no idea that so many moves were going to be taken out, and I get that needed to happen to move from DS to 3DS, but when I saw all my favourite moves disappear, and then the new ones that they came up with were kick ball, it turns into wind and goes forward, it made me think, oh no, they're actually running out of ideas. Thankfully they weren't, they redeemed themselves later on, but yeah, when you had stuff like Sidewinder and Sonic Shot in the early game, I wasn't off to a good start with Go 1. Twin Sun Smash I really like because the movements are so robotic that it's perfect for Perfect Cascade, and then you can randomly get other people doing it and it's totally unfitting, which makes it all the more perfect really. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Say it again. For a B tier move. So like Excalibur, like Big Bang, Supernova is another move that's a tad unfortunate with its name, because at the time it was totally fair game. Nothing else was Supernova at that point, and it made for a brilliant, strong final move. You know, if the first game had God knows, now we've actually got just a straight, strong move. But they needed that name. They named an entire game Supernova, which has a team called Supernova, and they probably have a move which somewhat involves a supernova. So sadly this one was a bit ahead of its time. It was kind of obviously going to be come up with, but it's also then not their strongest move, because Space Penguin, anyone? Spin Meister is good because it's alpha, but not because it's a good move. Double Helix looks like it would be perfectly at home on Protocol Omega, but it actually belongs to the Hyper-Evolved children in the late stages of the story. It's used by two different people, and then Mike gets it in his level up moveset, which means it is Protocol Omega after all, right? Samba Strike is just so fun. It doesn't make sense as a move. Like, how do you do that kind of movement? Is it actually going to enter the tier list? No, it's ended up somewhere else, but well, I'll have to go find it. But you know what it was meant to be. It was a fun move. So while Gungnir was kind of my introduction to long shots, the one that was actually meant to do it is Comet Shot, the redeeming factor of Todd, but still not actually that much to look at. Now let's give some heavy praise to Solar Nexus, or in its native language, Sunshine Storm! Visually, it's stunning. It just rips away the sky with his arm and then blasts a big flaming ball. It's unfortunate for Soul that his strongest move in Chrono Stones is equivalent in power to Bylong's weakest, but they are meant to be parallels, and much as I hate to say it, Bylong, Solar Nexus is actually better. Tarzan Kick is exactly what it says on the tin, and I'm not going to punish it for that. It's going in C tier when it shows up. So Thundertaker is, again, essential for those competition routes when they're getting really high leveled, but to actually look at, it's nothing special. So I'm blending utility with looks here. I think this is Whirlwind Drop, Nathan's combo shot with Sean, one that I forget exists, and it's not, well, for that reason it's not particularly memorable, but it's still a unique combination, and that's fine. Celestial Smash, I think I pretty much like equally with Meteor Blade. You know, visually they're both around about the same level. You know, one's obviously grander than the other, but then Meteor Blade has the advantage of coming back and the slightly better sounds. Yeah, just wish Celestial Smash was learned a little earlier by Xavier, or maybe the birth, because Meteor Blade is fully leveled up in Inazuma 11 3 ages before Xavier gets a second shot. Speaking of which, here's the birth. This is the one that I'm actually going to punish for Xavier having too late in his level up moveset. I would really like, don't know where it's gone again, but yeah, I would really appreciate having that in the game a bit earlier. The best thing about it for me is not even when Xavier and Sean use it, it's when it gets ripped off by Aphrodite and Tezcat in the Legend Dream match thing. The Earth. So before we had Ultimate 11 Assault, this was your big game-ending move. And it looks less good than Ultimate 11 Assault, but it's got a bit more of a learning process to it as well, actual story impact, so it's B tier. Inazuma Break, irregardless of what you think of it, it's way too iconic to not having at least the B tier. Nocturne is a move that I only saw for the first time extremely recently while I was recording the post-game coverage for Chrono Stones. I live reacted to it in a video, and I thought, well, this looks silly. The werewolf in the back is totally contradicting with the bat. Oh, the screen's turned upside down. And then, yeah, my opinion changed as quick as a flash. Now I love using it in every single match in the post-game just to see what every stadium looks like upside down. Now, Tri Pegasus, I am putting in the D tier. It's fun that it's Eric, Bobby, and Mark, but it's a good move, and it would be C tier if it was on its own. And I don't know where it's gone. I think it's there. But I have to punish it because unfortunately we have this move as well. The evolved one that is exactly the same. It's just a different colour. I'm trying to put it in E tier here. And it's ended up in what is this. But the only difference is that it's a slightly changed colour, and Axel Blaze gets involved in the first use before he's missing in subsequent ones, and then it's pretty much back to being Tri-Pegasus again. The Typhoon, great to have another shot on Hurley Kane. Good name, Robot Wars reference, B tier. It's not a Robot Wars reference, but you know, I like to pretend. I can't believe it, but the F tier has actually made it to a second row. It won't go much further, but Entropic Arrows hurts to look at. There is no football involved beyond the first kick where it just disappears, and then you see this rain of spears going down on the goalkeeper, and like, guys, it's a football match. I don't want the goalkeeper getting stabbed to death by rain. And then they give it to Vladimir, who's such a good guy, but his move is horrible. Now, I like Fireball Storm, so of course I'm going to like Tiger Storm as well. You get the best bit of Bakunetsu Storm, it's just now Tiger Storm! This might upset a few people. Legendary Wolf is not my cup of tea. I love seeing Sean do actual icy moves down to his main theme, but his backup theme of wolves and all that, I don't really get it. He just visually doesn't give me that look at all, and Legendary Wolf again has the issue of not actually involving a kick in the end. I've realised now this is not Legendary Wolf, it's the combo shot with Thor, but that would be in the D tier anyway. What will not be going in the D tier is Acrobat Bomber. You can't tell from this image that it is Acrobat Bomber, I must admit, and it's not amazing in the anime. It's probably B tier at most, but in the game it's so funny. You just pick up a random player and chuck them arse first into the ball with crazy sound effects and 3 different camera angles. It's endlessly amusing to do with whoever you can find, and it is another one of those moves that I like so much. I've actually done it in person, and that was a bad idea. Now I have to talk about the 2 Triangle Z moves together because they're both so funny. You know, the first version is a comedy move that's being used by comedy characters, while the second version is a comedy move being used by completely serious characters. But they're from the same team, Kirkwood, and they just actually see it as a genuine icon of their team at this point. And then it's even funnier when Dave Quagmire tries ripping it off as well, but the Murdoch brothers make me laugh so much, and their move is fittingly funny. Into the A tier, I have just dropped Triple Boost. One of the moves that was the first. I had like 3 moves in mind for the S tier when planning this video, and surprisingly Triple Boost was one of them. But I've decided to be more realistic now and just go for high in the A tier. I like it because it's extremely useful in the game. It's an accessible long shot that you always have on Caleb Stonewall, while in the actual anime it's used by the Dark Emperors of all people. It doesn't look that exciting in the anime, but the sound effects in the game and the randomness of who gets involved is what makes it such a fun move to use. So A tier at minimum. Muddy ball rolls towards goal, not great. Tsunami boost though, again we've got to give credit to all of our long shots. I do prefer the Typhoon to look at, I must admit, but Tsunami Wave is such an important move that you will be using a lot, and it's great. So before, when I talked about the steeple shot, that's the actual steeple shot. So again, we've got an interloper in the list somewhere. Twin boost F makes quite a lot of sense. You know, you need one more powerful shot to kind of finish the job on Zeus, so just combine Twin Boost with Fire Tornado. But you do forget it ever happened, I must admit. Cosmic Blast is technically a Jordan move, but I'm gonna have to hold it back, because while it looks fine in the anime, it's a bit too DS graphic-y in the game, and it looks less like actual space and more like, you know, a hand puppet with a space pattern that just expands towards the goal. So for once it's actually the anime helping out and the game hindering. Bloodsucker Bite is Nocturne but without the fun bit, but it's still good enough for the C tier. Here's the actual legendary wolf for reasons we sadly discussed earlier. We went through most of Kevin's moves a long time ago, but now we, I think, finally get to the original. I believe this is Dragon Crash, but it could be Wyvern Crash, and I've had them the wrong way around the whole time. But, you know, the weak early game version is one that I appreciate, is what I'm trying to say here. That's definitely Wyvern Crash. I'm going to have to swap them around, I think. Meanwhile, here is Wyvern Blizzard, and that's the one that actually gets to go to B tier as well. I was nearly going for A, but then I remembered something. The plus point is that it's a combo shot between Kevin and Sean, genuine good friends that really deserved to have a combo shot together. But the reason I hold it back, I think when Sean is kind of not on the pitch or in his alternate form, something like that, there is a reason why you can't use this move sometimes, and that's the problem. Important long shot, it's one from Goldie and it's a strong B tier. Mainly on the name, Do Re Mi. Bylong's Zero Magnum is going to jump into the B tier. It's got Bylong, who I love, it's got Tezcat, who I love, and then the move is just fine. It's another big, powerful laser blast. I guess that makes it a C tier, doesn't it? Now this is going to look a little sus. I do not know what move I'm dragging, but for whatever reason I can't find White Hurricane on the tier list. It's probably here somewhere, but I'm just going to pretend that that is Bylong's move, White Hurricane. Clearly it isn't, but it's going to the A tier as representation. Finally, we have two moves left to talk about, and one of them is sadly the final addition to the F tier. I simply don't like that Hector Helio plays as a forward out of goal, because it ruins the parallel with Mark. They're both the strongest goalkeepers in the tournament, complete parallels to each other, except this guy's also a forward and Mark's not. It's even okay for him to have a shoot if he does a random Mark style run to the goal like he does with Megaton Head, but no, Hector Helio actually plays as a forward to get his fake Darren LeChanson goal for a bit, and I just wish he didn't. It's so out of character. I wish he was purely focused on being an amazing goalkeeper without him also being a top tier striker. X-Blast itself is fine, it's not brilliant, and so I'm mainly punishing it for the decision that it exists at all. But the final move that I'm going to include is a single shot from Go Galaxy. If you don't want to see it, then turn off now, because trust me, it's a late game one. I would be remiss if I did not include Stargazer. It's totally ineligible for this tier list because it's not from a game that I'm including in the tier list, but I have to have it because it's actually my favourite move in the Inazuma 11 series. Stargazer is one I can just watch endlessly, and I know that I've not even played it in the game yet. But you know what? I am so excited to. It's not at all what I expected from Mr. Spoilers' shooting move. After so many big laser moves in Go Galaxy, I was all ready for another one. And actually, we got a gentle, subtle space thing with a brilliant name, which is so iconically uttered as Stargazer. I love it beyond belief, and it has somehow climbed to being my favourite without even being in a game that I've played yet. And so, this is the final tier list. I have ordered the S tier, and then the rest is pretty much as it goes in. You know, Black Ash is definitely top of A, and Dragon Driver is top of B. Other than that, it's pretty unordered. We'll shove that as the top 3 ordered for A tier, and then it's pretty fair game beyond that 4 now. Yeah, so that's my top 10, if you will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Alright, so as usual, the link to make your own tier list is in the description. I hope you have some fun with that, and maybe come back for another one if this didn't take 2 hours to watch. Oh dear, this was a long one.